So today I want to talk about something that most people are completely missing about Iran's latest move. Everyone is watching the headlines. Everyone is watching the news anchors react with shock. Everyone is watching Washington for some kind of official response, but almost nobody is asking the question that actually matters most to ordinary people right now. What does this move mean for you? What does it mean for your job, your energy bill, your food prices, your savings, your future? Because here's the truth. When Iran makes a move this big, this unexpected, on a day when America stays completely silent, that silence is not confusion. That silence is a calculation. And China understood exactly what that calculation meant before the dust even settled. The answer, when you look at it carefully, is that what Iran just did is not simply a geopolitical event. It is the opening move in a new power arrangement that will reshape global trade, global energy, and the global balance of power. Depending on where you live, depending on which side of this new arrangement your country falls on, your life is about to change in ways that most people have not even begun to prepare for. So today I want to walk you through exactly what Iran did, why America went silent, what China already calculated, and what every major country in the world now has to decide, part by part, step by step. So let us begin. The first thing you need to understand, the foundation of everything else I'm going to tell you today, is this. The global order that has existed for the past 40 years was built on one unspoken agreement. America provides military security for the Middle East. The Middle East prices its oil in US dollars. And every nation that needs that oil has to hold US dollars to buy it. That arrangement made America the most powerful nation in modern history, not just because of its military, but because of that financial architecture. Because when the whole world needs your currency to buy the most essential resource on the planet, you can borrow unlimited money, run unlimited deficits, and project unlimited power. That is the system Iran just challenged. The question is no longer whether Iran can survive American pressure. Iran has been surviving American pressure for 45 years. The question is whether Iran has found a way to break the financial architecture that makes American power possible. The answer to that question depends entirely on one thing: whether Iran can build an alternative system fast enough with China's help before America decides to respond with full force. And the more Iran delays that American response, the more China builds that alternative, the less time America has to act, the more the old order fractures. Let me walk you through every major player in this situation with that framework in mind. Because this is not a story about missiles, this is a story about money, energy, and who controls the next 30 years. On the surface, Iran looks like a nation under siege. Its economy has been strangled by sanctions for decades. Its currency has lost enormous value. Its people are frustrated. Its military infrastructure has taken significant damage in repeated exchanges with Israel, but underneath that surface, Iran just did something that nobody in the Western mainstream media is explaining clearly. Iran quietly formalized an energy and trade agreement with China worth an estimated $400 billion over 25 years. That is not a news headline. That is a structural shift. Iran is no longer trying to survive sanctions. Iran is bypassing them entirely by building a parallel economic system with the second largest economy in the world. Think about what that means in practice. If China buys Iranian oil in Chinese yuan instead of US dollars, that oil trade never touches the American financial system. Every barrel of Iranian oil sold to China in yuan is one fewer barrel that reinforces the petrodollar. And the more nations that follow this model, the faster the financial architecture of American global power erodes. So, for ordinary Iranian families, this does not immediately fix inflation or shortages, but it does give the Iranian government a long-term economic lifeline that sanctions alone cannot cut. Iran made a move. It just did not announce it loudly. And that is exactly why most people missed it. On the surface, America looks like the undisputed global superpower. Its military is unmatched, its economy is the largest in the world, its currency is the reserve currency of the entire planet. But underneath that surface, America is dealing with something that limits its ability to respond to Iran's move the way it might have 20 years ago. America is sitting on $39 trillion in debt. $39 trillion. And the mechanism that allows America to sustain that debt is the petrodollar, the global demand for US dollars created by oil trading. Every time a nation buys Gulf oil, it needs dollars. That demand keeps the dollar valuable and keeps American borrowing cheap. If Iran successfully builds an alternative system, if China, Russia, and eventually others start buying oil outside the dollar system, American borrowing costs go up. American debt becomes harder to sustain. The financial engine of American global power starts losing pressure. So when Iran made its move and America stayed silent, that silence was not weakness. It was calculation. America is weighing the cost of a full military response, which could trigger an energy shock that damages the global economy America depends on, against the cost of allowing Iran's alternative system to slowly grow. For ordinary American families, this means energy prices, inflation, and the cost of borrowing are all quietly connected to what happens next. America is best positioned of any nation to handle this. Its Western Hemisphere resources are enormous, but the $39 trillion debt is a real vulnerability that this situation is directly targeting. On the surface, China looks like a nation under economic pressure. Its property market has collapsed. Its consumers are not spending. Its exports are facing tariffs. Its relationship with the West is deteriorating. But underneath that surface, China has been quietly executing a 25-year strategic plan that Iran's move just accelerated. China imports approximately 40% of its total energy from the Gulf. 40%. That is a massive dependence on a supply chain that runs through the Strait of Hormuz, the most geopolitically sensitive shipping lane in the world. China knows this. China has known this for decades, and China has been building its solution the entire time. That solution is the Belt and Road Initiative, the yuan-based oil trading system, and the $400 billion Iran deal. China is not trying to defeat America militarily. China is trying to build a parallel global economic architecture, one where energy trades in yuan, where infrastructure connects Asia and Africa without going through Western financial systems, and where American sanctions lose their power because the transactions never touch American banks. When Iran made its move, China did not react with surprise. China was ready. China already calculated that this moment would come. The only question for China was timing. And now the timing has arrived. For ordinary Chinese families, this strategy does not immediately solve their economic problems. Chinese consumers are still cautious, still saving rather than spending, still worried about their economic future. But this strategy gives the Chinese government a long-term path that does not depend on Western approval. That matters enormously for what comes next. On the surface, Europe looks like a stable bloc of wealthy democracies managing a difficult period of geopolitical turbulence. But underneath that surface, Europe is facing a genuinely impossible choice. Europe imports a significant portion of its energy from the Middle East and has deeply integrated its financial system with the American-led global order. European banks operate under American financial rules. European companies face American sanctions if they trade with Iran. European energy security depends on stability in exactly the region that Iran just destabilized. Further, Europe's average household already saw energy bills rise by 40 to 60% following the Ukraine war. A new disruption in the Gulf, even a moderate one, could push those numbers significantly higher. The impossible choice Europe faces is this: if it follows America's lead and increases pressure on Iran, it risks an energy shock it cannot absorb. If it quietly allows trade with the new Iran-China system to develop, it undermines the American-led financial architecture it is dependent on for 80 years. For ordinary European families, this means the energy price crisis that many thought was ending is not over. It is entering a new phase. How European governments navigate this choice will determine whether their citizens face another round of painful inflation or find a pragmatic path through, on the surface, the Gulf states. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait look like wealthy, stable nations sitting atop enormous energy reserves. But underneath that surface, those nations are watching something deeply alarming. The nation that has guaranteed their security for 40 years just went quiet at a critical moment. The Gulf states' entire security model is built on American military protection, American bases on their soil, American carrier groups in the Gulf, American political backing at the United Nations. In exchange, the Gulf states price their oil in dollars, recycle their dollar earnings into American financial markets, and keep the petrodollar system alive. When Iran made its move and America stayed silent, Gulf leaders did not feel reassured. They felt exposed. Because if America is recalculating its response to Iran, that recalculation includes recalculating exactly how much American power is committed to Gulf security. Saudi Arabia has already been hedging. It has been engaging with China. It has been opening dialogue with Iran. It has been making moves that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. Because 5 years ago, American commitment to Gulf security felt absolute. That commitment no longer feels absolute. And for the Gulf states, a world where American protection is conditional is a world where the entire economic model they built, the desalination plants, the air-conditioned cities, the imported workforces, and the financial centers becomes fragile in ways they have never had to face before. So now let us zoom out and look at the biggest picture of all. Because what Iran's move, America's silence, and China's calculation reveal goes much deeper than any single diplomatic event or military exchange. For the past 40 years, the global order has operated on a system of interlocking dependencies. America provides security. The Gulf provides energy priced in dollars. Asia manufactures goods using that energy. The West consumes those goods and recycles capital back into American financial markets. Every piece of that system reinforces every other piece. Iran's move is not an attack on one piece of that system. It is an attack on the architecture that holds all the pieces together. And here is the crucial insight that most people are completely missing. The petrodollar system is not just a financial arrangement, it is the foundation of American global power. Every major action America takes, every sanction, every military deployment, every trade negotiation depends on the dollar remaining the world's reserve currency. And the dollar remains the world's reserve currency largely because oil is priced in dollars. If that changes, even slowly, even partially, the cost of American power rises dramatically. American borrowing becomes more expensive, American sanctions become less effective, American military deployments become harder to sustain financially. China has been studying this vulnerability for 2 decades. Iran has been trying to exploit it for 4 decades. And what is different now is that China has the economic scale to actually make an alternative system work. And Iran has shown it is willing to be the first major oil exporter to test that system openly. The nations that understand this, that see beyond the headlines about missiles and diplomatic statements, are the ones quietly repositioning right now. Not just governments, but businesses, investors, and ordinary families who understand that the world their economic plans were built for is changing faster than most people realize. This is not a story about the Middle East. This is a story about the next 30 years of global power. And the opening chapter was just written. I want to end with the most surprising conclusion of this entire analysis. You might expect me to say that Iran is the big winner here. Iran made the move. Iran is challenging the system. Iran has secured a massive long-term deal with China. Surely, Iran comes out of this stronger, but actually, no. The real winner of Iran's move, if it works, is not Iran. It is every small and medium nation that has been trapped inside the American-led financial system and has been waiting for a credible alternative to emerge. Think about what that list includes. Countries in Africa that have been unable to build infrastructure because American-aligned financial institutions set the terms. countries in South America that have been forced to accept painful economic conditions to access dollar-based financing, countries in Asia that have watched their currency reserves evaporate because of dollar fluctuations they had no control over. For all of those nations, a functional alternative, a system where energy trades in yuan, where Chinese infrastructure financing is available, where American sanctions cannot reach, is not a threat. It is a lifeline. Iran's move, if it holds, is the first serious proof of concept that this alternative system can function, that a major energy exporter can operate outside the dollar system with the backing of a major economy. That is not just significant for Iran, that is significant for every nation that has ever felt the cost of dollar dependency. The question is not whether America will respond. America will respond. The question is whether America responds fast enough and effectively enough to prevent the alternative system from reaching critical mass. Because once enough nations have moved enough of their trade into an alternative system, the cost of reversing that becomes prohibitive. That is not weakness on America's part. That is the nature of systemic change. It does not announce itself loudly. It builds quietly, deal by deal, agreement by agreement, until the day it becomes impossible to ignore. That day may be closer than most people think. So let us just recap what we covered today. Iran made a move that most headlines missed, formalizing a $400 billion 25-year trade and energy deal with China that is designed to bypass the dollar-based financial system entirely. America stayed silent, not out of confusion, but out of calculation. Because a full response carries economic risks that America, sitting on $39 trillion in debt, has to weigh very carefully. China already calculated this moment. China has been building an alternative economic architecture for 2 decades. And Iran's move accelerates that plan at exactly the right time. Europe is caught between 2 systems, facing an energy cost crisis if Gulf instability deepens, and a strategic crisis if it has to choose sides between America and the emerging China-Iran axis. The Gulf states are watching their security guarantor go quiet at a critical moment and quietly beginning to hedge in ways that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. And the real winners, if this alternative system takes hold, are not Iran and China alone. They are every nation that has ever felt trapped by dollar dependency and has been waiting for a credible exit. This war, this move, this silence, this calculation is not just a geopolitical event. It is the opening of a contest for the financial architecture of the next 30 years. The cheap energy world is fracturing. The dollar-denominated trade world is developing serious cracks. And in the space those cracks are creating, a new arrangement is being built. The question is not whether this reorientation is coming, it is already here. The question is whether your country and whether you personally are positioned for a world where the rules you built your plans around are being quietly rewritten. Subscribe for more analysis of the conflicts and shifts shaping our world, explained in simple English. And tell me in the comments, do you think America will act decisively to stop this? Or is the alternative system already too far advanced to reverse? I will see you next time.